Hello and welcome to Daily Politics on Trust TV. On this program, we discuss issues around politics, policy and governance. I'm Hamza Idris. The governor of Bayelsa State and People's Democratic Party candidate for the upcoming governorship election, Senator Duye Diri, and the All Progressive Congress candidate, Chief Temrupri Silva, are exchanging accusations regarding alleged plans for violence and the stockpiling of arms during the election. The accusations began after both candidates, along with others, signed a peace accord in Yenagoa organized by the National Peace Committee, chaired by former Head of State, General Abdulsalami Abubakar. Governor Diri expressed doubt about the effectiveness of the peace accord, stating that Silva falsely accused him of stockpiling arms in Kolokuma and Opokuma local government areas. Diri called on security agencies to investigate Silva's actions, particularly in Nembe, where he allegedly prevented people from participating in the democratic electoral process. But on the other hand, Silva highlighted instances of violence allegedly orchestrated by the PDP in Kolokuma and Opokuma local government area and expressed hope that the peace accord will encourage all parties to prioritize peace in the election. General Abdulsalami Abubakar, represented by Bishop Matthew Kuka, urged Bayelsa residents to vote for peace and unity on election day. He emphasized that the signing of the peace accord should not be considered a mere formality and encourage contestants to treat the election like a family event, considering the shared community ties in Bayelsa State. And tonight we have in the studio Paul James, the program manager elections at Yaga Africa. He's going to share his thoughts on some of the happenings, especially in Bayelsa, Imo, and Kogi State. Welcome to the program.
Thank you very much for the invitation.
And viewers, will take a short break. When we return, the conversation commences proper. Don't go away. Yes, welcome back. Yes, Paul, yes. Have you made an attempt to visit Kogi, Imo, or Bayelsa in the last 1 week?
Yes, I just got back from Imo State, especially. I've been there for the last 1 week. I was there where I met with the major stakeholders. We had a meeting with the civil society community in the state. We also had a meeting with the media. In fact, we had a roundtable with the media and civil society. Over 60 persons attended the roundtable just to get a sense or a pulse of what to expect for the election.
Was there an open...
It was a closed meeting. It happened, of course, in a sort of closed environment in one of the hotel facilities in the state. We also met with the Commissioner of Police, met with also the INEC, the Electoral Commissioner in the state, just to understand the level of effort that the stakeholders are putting in to ensure credible and transparent elections in Imo State. I was in Kogi sometimes in September also, where I had similar engagement, but importantly also to train our observers for pre-election observation and also in the recruitment of our polling unit observers in the state. I haven't been to Bayelsa, but we have our people in Bayelsa that have also been sharing updates about the happenings in the state of Bayelsa.
Okay, now Bayelsa, that was what I mentioned during the preliminary part of this program. Already, you know, Matthew Hassan Kuka, Emmanuel, on his own right, he was there who represented, you know, General Abdulsalami Abubakar to sign the peace accord. But there and then, the spark continued between Diri and Silva. Is there any relevance to signing peace accord in our electoral process?
I think, for me, I used to be an apostle or disciple of this peace accord initiative, but over time, it is becoming more symbolic in the sense when you put it in the minds of the people that you are coming to sign a peace accord, you give the sense or the feeling that you are in a state of war. And so you want to come and talk about why we need to maintain the peace and all of that.
But are we not
because this is what
political war?
This is what politicians and those who are benefiting from this kind of atmosphere have turned our elections to. And it is sad that we're having this conversation always around our elections. My sense will be, what do we even need to do to get us to the level where we don't have to be talking about this peace accord? And all of these are enshrined in our extant laws, electoral laws and all of that.
Okay, like what, Paul?
They made it very clear about what should happen when this sort of occurrences happen around our elections, especially the rhetoric we hear from politicians when they go out to do their campaigns. Bayelsa, for some reason, has been more civil, have been more cold, if you like, compared to Kogi and Imo State. The only major incident we heard from Bayelsa was on August 13th, somewhere in Nembe. I heard Nembe was mentioned earlier, where there were some attacks and in a community called Opunembe in Nembe. Other than that, the major things we hear from Bayelsa are majorly verbal assaults between the two major gladiators, between the APC and the PDP. So I thought that we saw more maturity from them until the spark we saw during the peace accord signing ceremony. Me, I thought that is their own way of telling their supporters that they are there and that,
maybe they don't have message to pass to this.
Because, go back to the electoral history, electoral story. If you go back to Bayelsa 4 years ago, it was also the same thing when the peace accord. In fact, in 2019, they even staged a walkout during the peace accord signing ceremony. I was in the room when that happened.
Despite their presumed quietness, as you suggested. Of course, we brought guests here who also variously said, compared to Imo and Kogi, Bayelsa is like heaven. But yesterday, we saw an assault by using dynamite. The house of neighbor of former President Goodluck Jonathan. What does this point at?
Well, again, this is very clear, synonymous with Bayelsa politics. In the week of the election, you see more and more of this. 2019, there was attack very close to a hotel where we stayed in Bayelsa, in Yenegoa.
Is that why you left the state? Imo, for instance, yesterday or today?
Not necessarily. For Imo, it was very strategic. We are observing in the three states, and we thought it was more beneficial for us to set up a strategic or a central location where we could have a central data center to observe the three elections. So we had trained our observers in the three states. We have our boots on the ground. We thought it is better to come back in Abuja and be able to harvest all of the information that will come from the state. Not to also say that, we also have our people from here that are also supporting in the state. For instance, while we return on Sunday, we have some of our members of staff that are still in Imo supporting. We also have some persons in Kogi that are supporting. It's only in Bayelsa that we don't have anybody from Abuja that is supporting. But because, of course, we thought over time we have built capacity, and the individuals we have in the state will be able to manage some of the processes effectively. So we thought it was better that we come to the, we stay in a more central point and be able to have a bird-eye view on the three elections happening.
I want to quote Governor Diri, again, when he said, Silva has accused me, and then he called his name, Duye Diri, of stockpiling arms in Kolokuma. That should be the fattest lie of the year, and that shows that this peace accord is going to be ineffectual, because if a man chooses to be telling lies, even in the face of this peace accord, then something is wrong.
That is the nature of the politics in Bayelsa. In fact, in the South, there is this thing they say about open eye. They feel sometimes you have to flex muscles to show people that you own the space. And then in Bayelsa, the sort of rhetoric we hear in Bayelsa is that he who controls the water controls the election. That is one. Now, what that points is the fact that most of the people that control the water, if you remember our history of violence around that region, are people in the creeks and all of that, the bad element, the bad boys. And so it's not I think it's not unconnected to the fact that there is this sense that the politicians control some of them and then they unleash them around the election to do whatever they want them to do. I mean, controlling them also implies you have to supply them with the sort of equipment they need to carry out whatever dastardly act that they want to do around the election. I am not accusing anybody. I don't know, because he who alleges must prove. Both of them have accused each other. We don't know, but I think...
Yes, and in fairness, I think I have to quote Silva. The APC today has come to demonstrate that we are committed to peace, but we are not comfortable with the disposition of our opponents. There has been a lot of violence orchestrated by PDP, but I'm hoping that the peace accord will make all of us to stand back and ensure there is peace in this election. Is it that there is some loss of trust in the whole process?
Exactly. So there are some elements that characterizes this election. One is the disenchantment you see on the part of even the citizens to engage the process. There is the apparent fear of intimidation in the election, because that is the new weapon that politicians are using in the 3 states. These are states that are prone or notorious for election-related violence. There is also this sense you get from the people that they don't even trust the institutions. There is the sense you get that people don't trust elections, don't trust the institutions that are managing the process. So these are the sort of, I mean, under circumstances that the elections will be conducted. The biggest fear also is the threats of insecurity in the states, given the history that we know also in those 3 states. Now, we fear that with all that we saw happen in the pre-election phase, that it could potentially affect citizen turnout in the election. There is a total lack of trust in the process and in the in elections especially.
Now, in Kogi, we discovered that only one of the candidates, you know, I don't want to mention name, was physically there at the signing of the peace accord signing. Or you want me to mention the name?
You don't have to mention the name.
Anyway, it's actually, so you can see, it's on the screen. The producer has put him there. It's Ododo of APC. So, I don't know. I'm going back to the first question I asked earlier. Is it that there is no trust? The other candidates, they didn't go there, or they feel that the decision has been taken already?
In Imo as well, the APC and the Labour Party candidate did not appear at the peace accord signing ceremony. So that's why I'm telling you that for them, this is becoming more symbolism to just show face and just put a pen to paper. But to make a point that at the end of every peace signing accord ceremony, there is some commitment that is exerted from the political parties and from the candidate. There is some form that they are all meant to sign, indicating that they are committing to ensuring peace in the election, and that if anything had happened in the election, either from them or based on their rhetorics or from even their supporters based on how they engage the process, that they will be held liable to that. And that is signed in the presence of the representative of the peace committee and as well one senior security official. In the last elections where we had just election happening in the state or at the national, we had the IGP of police there. So in the presence of the IGP, that is signed. But now you have representative of the IGP in the 3 states. And I want to believe that it's the same process, that this was signed in the presence of these individuals. And sometimes what we get to see is just what happened in the open. There are a lot of back channel advocacy that happens. There are a lot of things that happen behind the scene with the politicians, the candidate, and the major stakeholders in the peace, National Peace Committee, where they get these people to commit to ensuring peace in the election. But my concern, my worry always around this peace signing ceremony is that I think it happens too close to the election. We got barely 3 or 4 days to the election and the peace signing accord is happening. There was an attempt in the past to have them do this twice before the campaigns and close the election. If you recall, during the 2023 election, the first peace signing ceremony happened sometimes in September. and then the second peace accord happened in February. Because the sense is, if they commit to ensuring the peace even before their campaign, maybe that will
keep resonating.
Exactly, to keep resonating and as they go to engage. But I thought a lot of things happened so fast in these 3 states. A lot of other issues also emerged that, didn't allow the peace committee to be able to go in and do the peace signing before the campaign. I am guessing so, but because I was involved in also some of those conversations until I knew sometimes in October that the conversation also started again, that they want to do at least one before the election. So,
of course, you said you lose some of the energy you have towards this signing of peace accord. Do you think backing it with some legal provisions in form of maybe sanction for erring participants will in some ways reduce the problem?
The point to note is, again, a lot of people would think whatever happens in these 3 states yesterday, today, are just for the show. Because everything that is supposed to happen before now, we already have them in our laws. There are sanctions for violating the laws. There are sanctions for instigating violence. There are sanctions for everything in the new Electoral Act, 2022 Electoral Act. So it is in the enforcement of these sanctions that you always have the problem. Now, you got, for instance, there was this program that happened on Sunday, a roundtable on election security, and the IGP was there in the room. And I heard the IGP made a very profound comment that I didn't go well with me, because he made a comment like around electoral offenders, and he was like, oh, they make arrests and INEC prosecute. And then you begin to think, who actually should have the prosecutorial powers? Because whenever issues of laws and violations and sanctions emerges, people begin to become territorial in the engagement. If you go to the Attorney General of the Federation, for instance, they will say, oh, our role is just to advise. If you go to INEC, INEC will tell you, no, we don't have the powers. We make arrests and the police will prosecute. And now the IGP is making a statement on the national television to say, oh no, their own is to help INEC to arrest and INEC will prosecute. So you get confused at some point. Do people even clearly understand their role?
So where is the lacuna? Who should do what? And
now the lacuna is something that I always want to run away from saying, because it's becoming a cliche. It's becoming like so routine, so mundane. This thing about political will. And this goes to everybody, all of the stakeholders. We know what we are expected to do. But of course, the power to do that, the will to do that is always what is lacking. And the challenge is, we have made our politics some theater of sort, like, oh, for every election, there is this spectacle we create around it, these balls we get around the election. And then it comes and goes, we then move on to the next one. And that is always the danger for me, because there are a lot of things we also don't consider as we go into this sort of engagements. The political economy of doing this engagement, the cost of these engagements. Think about the cost of election. If you think about these 3 states and the sort of deployment that has happened, INEC, for instance, in Imo deployed 9 resident electoral commissioners. This is bringing people from their states to deploy them to Imo State. These are high-ranking officials, not to talk about other directors, other junior officers that have been deployed, and even mop-up that they have done from other states to come and support the election. This is on INEC. Think about the security. I was with the Commissioner of Police in Imo, where he also stated they were expecting deployment of over 10 commissioners of police. Yeah. These are all high-ranking officials.
In total, so they said they will deploy 67,000 personnel.
Exactly.
In
so
Kogi,
think about
Bayelsa and Imo ahead of.
Think about the cost of these deployments, and then also it's not just about the deployments. Sometimes you begin to think through how effective are these deployments, and that's why we continue.
But do they really and truly deploy, or is just to make the announcement?
That's also discussion for another day, because
no, I want us to discuss it today.
A lot of questions have been asked about that, because sometimes you go to the states, while you don't get a chance to do the head count, you begin to wonder, do they truly deploy the numbers they say they will deploy, especially when you begin to see how security lapses in some areas, or how you go to some polling units and you don't see security personnel, or they are there and they are not effective. Now, the effectiveness of deployment also implies that the police person or the security person that is at the polling unit is able to arrest, is able to prosecute. But most times, we are bringing people even from other states that are just there for just few days.
The symbolic part of it.
Exactly. They will come. For them, they are, as far as I'm concerned, they are also coming like other observers. They come, they observe the election, and they return to their base. Even when they arrest, it behoves on them to take whoever they have arrested to the court, for instance. They will not be there, because by the time the prosecution will start, they will have returned to their states. So you begin to wonder, why do we even have to go through all of this? When do we come to the place where we don't even have to hype our elections to this level? It's almost becoming like, oh, the new thing now is let's just be having this off-cycle. Because if you hear from the security cycle, they will tell you, oh, now that we have off-cycle deployment elections, we're going to do massive deployment. As if security now is associated with just having off-cycle election. Can we come to the point where we are able to even do elections without having this massive deployment? Can we come to the point where INEC doesn't even have to deploy from Abuja to go and help manage election in a state?
Or to deploy a certain commissioner from maybe Taraba to go to Bayelsa.
Exactly. If we trust that we have all of these institutions, if we have strong institutions and we trust that this institution can manage these processes effectively, it will help to reduce most of the costs that we see that are associated with our elections.
Where is the problem with the Electoral Act as amended 2022 in respect to this prosecution powers, what the limitations of INEC, the limitations of the police, the limitations of political parties?
The only problem is in people not reading the Electoral Act and not understanding the Electoral Act. Everything is there in black and white. For most of the people that talk about election, that you think are electoral enthusiasts, they are interested in election, ask them where's your Electoral Act. Some of them have never opened or never even seen the document. Everything you want to talk around election and prosecution, electoral offenses, they are embedded in the Electoral Act.
Are you saying the Electoral Act is a perfect document?
It is not a perfect document and can never be a perfect document, especially because of the ambiguities we saw around electoral technology deployment.
Which we'll discuss in the second aspect of the conversation.
I don't want to get into that now. I know you come to discuss that.
Yes.
It is not a perfect document. And then, if you think around how the Electoral Act came into being, it was rushed. To the point that even the people that thought gave us the Electoral Act shoot themselves in the foot. If you recall, there was a point where the people in the National Assembly could not even vote in the party primaries. Section 84, where the section gives power only to delegates to vote in primaries. Because that process was rushed, they didn't get the chance to scrutinize the electoral, every provision of the Electoral Act. But perhaps that's also why you go through elections sometimes. You finish, you reflect from the election, and you begin to see what aspects of this election do we also need to reform. I'm just worried that we don't have to be going through every electoral process and be thinking about reforming our act. Can we come to that point also where we think about, within our context, the context that we conduct election, what can be that perfect or near perfect system that we want to adapt or adopt as the processes for our elections?
Some countries don't even have a constitution. Of course, they have electoral guidelines, very minimal. You can just take it. Now, don't you think our politicians are doing some of these things as a self-serving measure? And that is why, while attempting to solve a certain problem, they end up creating maybe two more problems to add to the existing problem.
Of course, because anybody that is benefiting from a porous system wouldn't want to see that the systems are corrected. But of course, this is beyond them as we speak. Nigerians are becoming more wiser, more smarter, especially more interested in our elections, and we're seeing these things as they are. So lessons have been learned, especially from the 2023 election. So everybody that is working around election know that they are working on a very, very tiny thread and have to also be careful. From the Election Commission, even to the National Assembly, that is also helping to come up with our laws. So I am sure, I mean, I have this sense that in the future, we don't even have to talk. The National Assembly on its own, we want to correct some of the issues that we have seen in our election. For instance, there are already conversations happening within the cycle of the committees that we're aware of. The House Committee on Election Matters, Senate Committee on INEC, they are already having conversation around, can we even finish every issue relating to our elections before inauguration? Those are the kind of progressive provision that you want to see in our elections going forward. So I'm sure they are doing a lot of deep thinking around the election. I know we'll talk about election technology soon, but they're also talking about, can we make things clearer in the Electoral Act? To avoid this indiscretion, to avoid these ambiguities. Our elections cannot be decided based on technicalities.
Yeah, and the technicality issue has remained in the front burner. Some people even expected that something will be done ahead of these off-cycle elections to address some of these issues. Is it because the legislators are still battling in court?
No, if you look at the time,
problems?
If you look at the time in between when we had the national elections and the other issues that happened, after the national elections, you had inauguration that happened sometimes in June. After the inauguration, they went on recess. They just got back from recess. So I think we should also think that these are also human, and then based on also the timetable of how they operate, I thought there was they didn't have enough time to go through what is expected to begin to look at a more perfect document or a more perfect system. But conversations have started in different forums. There was an engagement that happened on the 23rd of October. I was part of that engagement about electoral reforms. Electoral reform roundtable happened. In that roundtable, we had the chair House Committee on Electoral Matter, Honorable Dayo Balogun, that was there and had made some commitments about what they are planning to do moving forward. Last Sunday, there was also another town hall that happened around our election security. So you are beginning to see this sort of engagement come up here and there. I am sure a time will come when all of this will be harmonized and you begin to hear about how to put a perfect document for our elections going
forward. All right. Thank you very much, Paul. We'll go on a short break. And viewers, we are going on a break. Don't go away. We'll be back shortly. Welcome back. If you are just joining, this is Daily Politics on Trust TV. Do well to follow us across all our social platforms on Facebook, Instagram, and watch us live on YouTube. Still having the studio, Paul James, Program Manager Elections at IAGA Africa. Welcome back. Yes, I read it somewhere. INEC saying they will not consider the ballots in any unit where there is violence. What is your take on this?
I actually have a problem with that. While it is part of INEC processes, what is in the INEC guideline, I thought politicians are beginning to exploit that. There are conditions under which INEC will cancel election in polling units. One of that is violence. Another one is in the instance of overvoting at a polling unit, where election did not even hold completely for different reasons, insecurities and all of that. But then the point around violence, I think that is what politicians are beginning to exploit.
How?
They are beginning to weaponize violence. If you cast your mind back to the last 4 or 5 years in our elections, in fact, let us just go back from 2019 till date. In the build-up of every of the election that had happened from that period till now, you will hear these cases of pre-election related violence. In Edo in 2020, Edo has 18 local governments. We deployed observers, long-term observers from June till September, and the reports we got from these observers indicated 12 of the 18 local governments were dealing with different forms of election-related violence. If you go back to Ondo in 2020, Ondo has 18 local governments. 13 of the 18 local governments, different shades of pre-election related violence. In fact, in Ondo, I still remember this story very well, a woman that ignorantly was putting on an apparel wrapper up, I think one of the party, the bottom part, another opposition. She was stripped naked in the state. Different issues around characterize the conduct of those elections in the state. Now, if you move on to the 2023 and all of that, 2023, it was almost like we were not going to have elections. INEC assets and facilities were attacked. 54 attacks on INEC facility. In one state alone, 12 attacks, Imo State, and this is the state that will have election this year. Now, if you think about all of this, and then what it will do to the psyche of an ordinary voter going into an election, it will just put fear in the mind of the voter. And once the politicians succeed in putting this, it affects turnout. Where turnout is low, what we have discovered is also where some of these politicians benefit. They go to manipulate elections. That is on one hand. On the other hand, based on what INEC has said, this is what is on their guideline and all of that. Where there is violence in the polling unit, INEC cancels the election. Politicians will exploit this in the sense that if a politician feels they are going to lose in the stronghold of the opponent, they go there and then unleash violence so that the opponent will lose in the stronghold, and then they will win where they think they have upper hand. We have also seen that in other states. So that is my fear around that. While that is not something that should be condoned, I am hoping also that this is also a strong message to the security agencies that where they are also there, we expect them to be professional and be more vigilant, that they don't allow this to happen. Violence, let's not forget, will happen in different form. Snatching of ballot paper is electoral violence. Hijacking election materials is election violence. In the 2019 election in Bayelsa, materials were hijacked. INEC officials were kidnapped. All of this constitute electoral violence. So if all of this happens in a massive scale, it's going to affect the integrity of the elections entirely. So that is our fear. That while INEC is coming up with this strong warning, the security agencies also will expect that there should be another commitment from them towards ensuring protection of life and properties, but also ensuring a more comfortable and secured environment for people to go out and vote. Already, Imo is characterized as a state where elections will happen under volatile security situation. As we speak, over 6 or 7 local governments in Imo are already in the red zone. Oguta, Okigwe, Ohaji Ebema, Olu, Oru East, Oru West. These are all places where we have observers. Imo? I am not from there, but we have people that are observing the pre-election process there, and they are feeding us with reports. In fact, in Osu local government, one of our long-term observers was identified as someone that was working around election. And so for fear of her life, she had to leave the state completely. And then there are places where they go, border town in Oguta, where they are warning people not to even mention election or participate in election.
Completely.
Completely. So they have in most of the places, succeeded in instituting fear in the minds of the people. So under this sort of volatile situation, it's going to affect turnout. But if the elections also happen with this massive threat that is happening in the state, unless there is a counter from the security, one assurances that we got from the police last week was that between Friday when we met and Wednesday, which is today, that we are going to see a lot of changes. So I am hoping that these changes have happened because I'm back in Abuja. I don't know what may have happened in the state. And I'm hoping that they have been able to inspire that confidence in the people that their lives and properties will be protected.
You raise a very important point where you said some politicians will exploit that threat by INEC to cancel election in any place where there is violence. And as you said, some politicians will cash on that to perpetrate violence so that they can disadvantage their opponents. Where should be the drawing line? I mean, what should be the parameters for INEC and the security agencies in cancelling such elections?
Well, the Interagency Committee on Electoral Security Access, we hope that they have been activated and they are going to be active. We have them in all the states. We have access at the national level. I have saw pictures from all the interactions that have happened in the 3 states, and I can identify some of the faces I saw in the pictures, high-ranking security officials. So I am hoping that their presence also will help to boost this confidence that they are going to do what is expected by the people. In 2022 Ekiti election, I was in one of those stakeholders meeting where we raised concern, Osun election rather, we raised concerns about some reports we had received in some part of Oshobo about some notorious criminal, Eniba and all of that. Eniba, I think, was the guy's name. And then the police said, oh, we're aware of that guy, and we will assure you that we are going to ensure we put him out of circulation. And they did.
They picked him?
They picked him.
Not that they killed him.
No, they picked him and ensured, because he threatened the election was not going to happen in the local government. So they put him out of circulation. Of course, I heard he was released after the election. But then, those are the sort of strong commitment you want to be seen from the security forces, that they make example of these notorious faces, notorious criminals before our election. But beyond that also, you want to see that collaboration between them, that synergy between them and INEC. Because most times also what happens around the election is you get to election day, most times elections are delayed because INEC officials cannot move, they don't have security. So it also affects conduct of election. Or sometimes they are also at the polling unit, there are no security officials. When security is porous, people will come and unleash violence on INEC officials. So we want to also see that synergy on the part of INEC and the security. In one of the local governments in Owerri, in Imo, or Su local government, INEC temporarily relocated its services from the local government to Owerri because of insecurity. Distribution of collection of permanent voters can even happen in Owerri for the local government. So they shut that temporarily. We had commitment from the Commissioner of Police that, oh no, election will happen in the LGA. As we speak, in Imo, we only know that election will not happen in 38 locations. And these locations are where INEC did not allocate any voter to the polling. You recall before the 2023 election, INEC mentioned that there are over 600 and so voters that were not allocated to any polling unit, so election will not happen in the polling unit with zero voters, so election will not happen. So 38 of those are in Imo. 2 of those are in Bayelsa.
And is it that the people were dislodged, or is it during the reconfiguration?
It was during the voter allocation to polling, but INEC is beginning to work on that. In Kogi, for instance, every polling unit has voter. So Bayelsa has still got 2 polling units with 0 voter. I'm sure with time they will sort all of that. But the point I'm making is these are the only locations we know where elections will not happen. police have made commitment that they are going to police the local government of Osu. An election will happen
with 67,000 personnel.
Yes. So we are hoping that they will stay true to their word, and that is going to happen. But again, the fear for a location like Osu, for instance, most of the communities have been deserted. And then if you are also committing to conducting an election, we expect that a communication about that will have happened earlier than... Communication started last week, the most that I know of, that INEC is going to the local government and elections will happen. So we wait to see what happens on Saturday, but I'm very positive, based on what I saw on the part of the commission, that the commission is to some extent ready for the election. What remains for me is that synergy, like I said, and that commitment from the security to ensure they provide cover for INEC, provide cover for election observers, provide cover for media, and by extension to also the voters in those states.
And what could be done at the final stage, I mean, ahead of 2027? Because even Ondo is just around the corner, to de-emphasize violence, because the loser wouldn't mind the potential winner so he can cause violence. Now, what do you think INEC, security agencies, should do to, de-incentivize that tendency? For instance, if I'm coming to your territory to disrupt the election, and is it that they should put some mechanism on ground to trace me, so that at the end of the day I will be the lone loser instead of also affecting your chances?
I am sure you may have experienced this. Sometimes when you engage people in some of these government establishments, some of these institutions, and you begin to mention some challenges, you get the sense that they are aware.
And why are they?
It's just to act that is not
reluctant to act.
Exactly. For instance, I gave an example about the case it was even in Oshobo, in Osun State. The moment we mentioned the place and the individual, the DIG of police then, I still remember the name, Johnson Babatunde Kokumo. Oh yeah, we know him, we are going to pick him up. I will assure you that we put him out of circulation. So they are aware. It's just that will to enforce what is expected. Now, what could be done? It's simple.
Okay. How simple is it?
As simple as make a high-profile example. Pick up a high-profile person, because some of these things are not unconnected to some persons or some individuals that you will know. Some persons are benefiting from the atmosphere of violence. Some persons are benefiting from the atmosphere of insecurity, and we know that. So when we make an example with an individual, certain relevant sections of the electorate to also make a connection between how the law has empowered the institutions of government to do whatever they do at that point in time, I'm sure it's going to send a very strong signal ahead of the 2027 election. All the while that we have been talking about election, I am not very sure, as I sit with you, that there have been any high-profile prosecution that has happened that relates to election violence. And we know these individuals. We could point these individuals of some of this violence that had happened. Recall even the one that happened in Kano before the election. Names were mentioned. Some persons even in the National Assembly, even if they were mere allegation, pick them up at least. Show the world that you are doing something about it. Even if some conversation will happen much later, at least pick up somebody to just show that our law enforcement is not only back, but they bite. Maybe it will put some sense, it will restore some sanity in the entire process.
Okay, and beyond picking high-profile or low-profile people, do you think maybe flagging up the votes of the perpetrator party will also do the magic? For instance, as I cited example earlier, if I come to your territory and then they identify me, a member of party XYZ, they now flag up all our votes of my political party while they allow yours, because yours legitimate. You didn't listen. Maybe INEC should put this in its electoral guidelines.
It's very difficult. It's always very difficult.
It will not dissuade people.
No, beyond that is sometimes we may end up just punishing who you are not supposed to punish. A case in point is, even if you think about the case before the tribunal in Kano, where they had cancelled over 160-something thousand votes. And then you begin to wonder, why is the vote just one-sided? Are you telling me in that polling unit, no single individual voted for opposition, and then only one person is affected? So if you also begin to do this cherry picking, and you say, I want to pick this location because violence happened and it was caused by this, you may end up punishing the wrong person. The point is, while we want to de-emphasize this point about, INEC is going to cancel election, everybody involved had to rise to the occasion.
So they should even find a way of denying the perpetrators to carry out their acts in the first instance.
Exactly. For instance, look, there are always triggers to these things. There are always early warning signs to these things before they even happen. If you go back to the 2023 election, and you begin to categorize some of these triggers, even around some triggers around hate speech, identity-based violence, violence against women, and all of that, you will see that they were very visible. We could even feel like touching them, but nothing was done. We just laughed around those issues. Oh, old man is still contesting in the election. People will laugh at it. But the supporters of the old man are not happy that you are calling him old man. Like, what were we doing around it? What only happened, if you recall, was a warning that came from the IG of police then and the National Security Advisor to some state governors. They were also doing things that were inflaming the polity. There were governors that were not allowing level playing field in their states. They will not allow opposition to come and campaign and all of that. Those are all triggers that we see before election, and some people carry it forward in the name of even acting for their principles. Sometimes the people don't even know. Some people want to do so that at the end they can return back to the principal to tell them, oh, I was the one that even did this in ABC location. And so that is why sometimes it is very, very important that you also have these stakeholders make some commitment, some pronouncement to dissociate themselves from whatever is happening.
Okay, now the last, which is the biggest elephant, the promise by INEC to upload results live. Do you trust them?
Well, I think they will succeed this time for
how?
The fact that they have done this in other state elections and it went well. In fact, in state elections like Anambra 2021, Osun in Ekiti, by 10 p.m., all the results were uploaded by the commission. So I strongly feel that they will do it. What the commission have not been doing well for me is setting out timelines and managing public expectations around timelines around what is expected to be done at every point, especially related to elections technology. For instance, on the 15th of October, the commission did mock accreditation in the 3 states. For all intent and purpose, we thought it was successful, but it happened only in 29 locations. 3 in every of the 3 states. Yeah, 29 locations. And this is also, these are 3 states combined, election happening in more than 6,000 polling units.
They ought to have covered more areas.
Exactly the point. And then when you do all of this, you also expect some sort of accountability from the commission to the people. Oh, this is what we have done, and this is the success rate. They did upload of results mock from the mock accreditation. It was hugely successful. But what we saw, there were 3 locations in Imo where the commission uploaded a wrong form. There were 3 locations in Kogi where commission uploaded the wrong form. If you go to the IRF and check mock accreditation, you confirm what I'm saying. They were supposed to upload from EC40E, EC8A, they uploaded from EC 40G. 40G is for locations where elections were cancelled or not held. But then the commission came up to say, oh, no, it is deliberate. Now, this is something they want to introduce, but like I said, they should also have informed Nigerians and prepare our mind. What they want to do for good reason, they want to begin to put up locations where elections are cancelled so that you see them online. But prepare the minds of Nigerians and tell them ahead so that Nigerians can prepare and know what to expect. That is always the challenge.
That's enlightenment. So, final word for every other person.
Well, for every stakeholder, please, our election should not be reduced to atmosphere of war. There is always life after the election, but we should also even plan for the life before the election. Right. The stakeholders concerned should know that, I mean, we also have a generation that is coming. Let it not become like a culture of a norm of how we want to be running our affairs going forward.
All right. Thank you very much, Paul James, Program Manager, Elections at Yaga Africa, for your informed contribution to this program.
Thank
we
you
hope
for
to have
the
you
opportunity.
most likely on the election.
I hope so.
And yours, that's a wrap on today's package. We sincerely hope you found the conversation engaging and informative. And be sure to join Daily Politics Live, airing every weekday, and also our special package on Friday, during which we open our telephone line for you to comment on national issues. Once again, we thank you for watching. Bye-bye for now. I'm Hamza Idris.